Climb into the cockpit with pilot and Link Square's Chief Legal Officer, Tim Perilla, as he invites legal leaders aboard to share advice that will help you navigate even the most turbulent times of in-house counsel work. We'll cover a range of topics from data privacy to legal team structure to public company transactions and beyond. You don't want to miss this series. Fasten your seatbelt and prepare for takeoff. You're listening to Cockpit Counsel.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Cockpit Counsel. My name is Tim, and I'm the Chief Legal Officer at Link Squares.
And I'm Alyssa Verzino, producer and co-host of the show. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoy the show, don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe. Now let's jump into our next episode.
Today with us we have Shai Mehani. Shai is the founder of In-House Connect. Had a great career beforehand. We're going to get into it. But Shai, we start every show the same way. What is your pre-flight ritual before you get on a plane?
So I love this question. And I just have to say, the airports these days, they have so many food options. It's like they have more food options than they do in the cities themselves. It's amazing. But my pre-flight ritual is to buy a bottle of water.
Okay.
I hate sitting in my seat waiting for a drink service to start. I'm thirsty. I'm hot. Like, I got to have water at my disposal. And I'm so happy that airports these days have $2 bottles of water now instead of only the $8 Essentia bottles of water.
Yeah, that are like 2-liter bottles.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's like
I'm good with 16 ounces.
Or like the regular, Poland Spring, it's wonderful. So gotta have that. And then I have water whenever I want. After the flight, during the flight, it's wonderful.
That's perfect. So let's talk a little bit about your career. Like what made you go to school? What did you want to do when you were in school, and how did that lead you to here?
I have a super random, interesting, career arc. So I went to law school because really it played to my strengths. I was good at reading, writing, speaking, and it made my mom happy. So that was like... That's really the number one reason that I went to law school. So I went to law school, had a great experience. Unfortunately, I graduated in the worst time, and the most recent worst time for new lawyers, right at the height of the Great Recession. So graduated in 2010. And it's interesting how much of your career is tied to luck and circumstances outside your control. But in hindsight, I wouldn't change a thing. So basically, in 2010, graduated. I got very lucky. I got a state court clerkship in New Jersey. I'm from New Jersey, a New Jersey native, and my judge was in the matrimonial division. Okay. So that was my clerkship. I learned all about matrimonial law and like divorce and alimony, child support, all of that good stuff. And I ended up practicing matrimonial law for the next 3 years. Okay. Certainly, that's not what I ever imagined when I went to law school. But it was,
while you're sitting in con law, just dreaming about the day you can be doing matrimonial law.
Or you're trying to figure out what you're going to take for, I don't know, the third semester. It's like family law has spots open. I'm like, no way am I taking family law, right? So ended up doing family law. And it was interesting. I got a lot of great skills. And it was a valuable experience. The problem is I did not want to practice matrimonial law. I like it when people are together and happy, and that ain't the case in matrimonial law.
Right.
But it was a valuable experience in that I learned how to negotiate contracts. I learned how to, negotiate, period, and handle high stressful environments. Mm-hmm. So a junior in-house counsel role opened up at a tech startup, and they were basically looking for somebody who could negotiate contracts and who could handle stressful environments. Because believe it or not, tech startups are a little bit chaotic, or can be at least.
They absolutely can be.
And so I got very lucky. I got this job. That was my big break, and that kicked off my in-house counsel career. And I basically learned how to negotiate contracts, MSAs, SOWs. It was wonderful experience. I had great mentors, and I learned a lot. And when I joined this, or when I got this role, I was so scared that I was really going in very cold, from matrimonial law to commercial contracts, and I was
Right.
so scared I was gonna not succeed at this job and have to go back to matrimonial law that I was very motivated to network. So I looked up networking opportunities. There was, the ACC, and I could have joined that, but I didn't want to. I couldn't afford $400.
Yeah.
It's just too expensive for me.
Yeah.
So I found a meetup group for in-house counsel. It was free. It met once a month in New York City, where I was living and working, and I joined and I started to attend these events. And it was basically monthly CLE panels hosted by different law firms. And I loved it. I loved networking with, I made lots of new friends. I learned a lot. I got free CLE, which is always great. And I just became a frequent flyer. And that's really, surprise in like hindsight, what got me to where I am today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as far as the networking side of it, you were like right out of the gate in your career, you're going that direction.
Totally. It was super important, and I learned from the matrimonial days how valuable it was to network, because it's a small world. You have the same adversaries, the judges. You need to meet the judges. It's like a small world, and I knew that if things go bad, I need to have networking is the type of thing, or a network is the type of thing that when you need it, you can't build it.
Right.
It has to be there before. So I was very keen on networking, and I really was scared that if something went wrong and I got fired or something too early, I wouldn't have enough experience to get another in-house role. So I was very motivated to network and meet fellow in-house counsel.
So obviously you saw that there was a need for something a little bit, I don't want to say better, but broader, more defined. At what point in your career did you start saying, all right, I want to make this a focus for me?
Yeah. So it's really interesting. And kind of funny just to talk about it in hindsight. For the next the next 4 or 5 years, I got more involved in this group, right? I started to organize CLE panels, we organized mixers, and I always was trying to figure out how to make it into a business, this meetup group, but I could never figure out, nothing ever worked, right? We weren't big enough, and I wasn't gonna Zoom wasn't a thing. So really for the next several years, I just did it because I enjoyed it, because I enjoyed the networking. I enjoyed organizing events. I enjoyed the people who came, and it was really just a professional endeavor. And I had moved around a bunch, the tech startup, it was chaotic. It ended up going into bankruptcy about 13 months after I joined. I had left before that happened. I had worked at Saks Fifth Avenue. I was a commercial counsel there.
Nice.
This was awesome, and I got a great employee discount, which I wish I still had.
Good experience too, I'm sure.
The experience was phenomenal. I worked all across the company, and it just brought my skill level to another level. And then from there, I actually worked as an Axiom attorney. I had 2 different assignments. I got to work at Casper Mattress, the first mattress in a box company. That was super awesome. And then Salesforce. So that was also really, really interesting. I never worked on a cloud computing type contract, order forms and instances and stuff. I'm sure you're super familiar with that here.
Now I am.
I thought I knew what I was doing before, but completely different ball game. So that was super valuable. And all throughout these different roles, I was organizing events for this meetup group.
Yeah, so you're moonlighting on this whole building a network situation, right?
It was, I really, throughout this point, I never again, I wanted it to be profitable. I wanted it to generate money, but at no point in the first 6 or 7 years was I ever like, okay, this can be, this is going to be my future, like right here. But I knew what we were doing was valuable. I enjoyed it. And I thought there was potential, but I never, it really wasn't like an intentional thing that one day this is going to be all I do.
Right.
So what ended up happening was I was working at this point. I was working at Optimum Cable, which is Altice. It's a telecom provider in New York City. Cablevision, right? It's the company that bought Cablevision.
Yep.
And things were going great with In-House Connect. We're growing. It's wonderful. Still not making any money, and I have a funny story about that. The only money we ever made, but I'll pause. Still not making any money, but I enjoyed it. Then COVID hits.
Okay.
And here's where things start to change.
Okay.
So I had this, really it all starts there. I saw that Zoom was becoming, ubiquitous and like got super, super strong traction across the country. And webinars were super popular and so on. And I thought to myself, we can't meet in person. What if we took the concept and put it online? We keep everything pretty much the same. It's free. I couldn't do CLE at the time, but I figure, we'll do some content that's in-house counsel focused. And I'll go out, I'll put it on LinkedIn, I'll invite people, and we'll see. Maybe, and then we'll do virtual networking afterwards. We did like breakout rooms afterwards. So I did that for a few webinars. It worked beautifully. We had over 100 people each time, and people were really networking, and I was like thrilled. And I saw an opportunity at that point I figured if we can get to a big enough audience, then opportunities will be there. Then this can like really, grow into something substantial. So that's when things change and I started to get more serious about it.
Yeah. And so obviously like it at its heart has always been very community driven, community first, which is great. And that's one of the things that I love about IHC is that, the handful of events and webinars that I've been fortunate enough to be a part of, it has had this community feel. And, I like the event in New York. It was surprising to me how many people were like there at the very end, like, okay, like the event technically ended like 45 minutes ago, like, and there's still like a lot of people hanging out, just like wanting to talk, wanting to get to know each other. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, we like the first like 5 or 6 years or whatever that period, like pre-COVID. I really took my role as an organizer, as the host. Like I felt like I was the host, and these people were my guests, right? Yeah. So I made sure to I was warm and I was inviting, and if I saw somebody who's alone, with a plate of salad or whatever, I would go and talk to them myself and I would introduce them. And so part of, embedded in the DNA of IHC is that warmth and that vibe. And it's a miracle, truly a miracle, that the vibe has extended across, like virtually, right? The webinars are like super, the chat box is very active. I love it. People network, they ask questions. They, sometimes it's on topic, sometimes it's not.
It's just fun.
It's people who are in the same town, or, there's always some guy who asks if there's any Canadians in the audience, which is kind of funny. It's really a pleasure to see, and it's wonderful to see.
What are some of the things that you, maybe some of the challenges you had to deal with when you went from like, okay, this is something like during COVID, I guess, where you really made that full cut over? Like what was kind of the hardest beyond what I would imagine would be the full-time leap of faith?
The full-time leap of faith came a little bit later.
Okay.
The COVID period, I was still proof of concepting and growing. But in the beginning was by far the hardest. Like getting it off the ground, figuring out, what is going to drive more people. I was 100% reliant on LinkedIn, and you can invite people to your events through LinkedIn, and that was the only way people like heard about our events. And I said, I got to get an email list. I have to that's really what drives attendance. I've come to learn. So building an email list, and there's like challenges with that. People move, people's emails bounce. It's a whole thing. I'm sure Alyssa can commiserate with that. So that was super challenging. Working with people on this, I found I found that to be super challenging. I had some really helpful people in the beginning, and they added like a ton of value, and then to manage that, like it was just too much going on to like manage them and keep us on the right foot and growing and executing that. Ultimately, like I didn't do everything myself necessarily, but I just kind of took everything over and like pretty much did it all myself with some help, obviously.
Right.
So like just getting it off the ground to a point where it was consistent. The website was good. We had a lot of people. That was enormously challenging. And then last but certainly not least, and this is not a challenge that has that doesn't exist today, getting financial support, getting sponsors.
Right.
It's not. It is. Like upon reflection, it is extremely hard to provide free, high quality CLE and networking, opportunities at really nice venues that are completely free to the attendees, completely free.
Right.
It's challenging to get sponsors. It's competitive. There's a lot of really great groups out there who, kind of do similar stuff. And that was, it's hard today. It's a little less hard, I would say, because, we're really established, but it was infinitely more hard when I was just, starting out and trying to get traction with law firms and legal tech companies.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the hardest part, I think, with just about any business you're going to start is how do you get, and tell me if I'm thinking about this the wrong way, but in a lot of ways, when you're thinking about your community, you have two products. One of them is your community, and the other is the content that you bring to the community.
Yeah, I like to think of it as serving two different audiences.
Yeah,
like I serve my community, my in-house counsel, and I serve my sponsors. At the end of the day, they keep the lights on, and that's something that I never ever lose sight of, and I think is somewhat of a competitive advantage for me. I invest very heavily in my relationships with my sponsors, and I really care about delivering a great experience. And that, and thankfully it's been a good approach, and we've had great experiences and great collaborations and hopefully many more on the horizon. But that's like a key differentiator. It's like I never really rested on my laurels on either for the in-house counsel or for the sponsors.
Yeah, absolutely. So how big is the community now?
So it's over. So it's an interesting question because I look at it. So like, what do you mean by community? So like, so it's interesting because In-House Connect, we're not a traditional membership group, right? You can make an account on the website, but that, anybody can come on pretty much and sign up for our webinars. And I like it like that. When I was just starting out, it was enormously beneficial to me to have access to that meetup group. And I don't want to, put up a paywall for people and prevent them from accessing our content for that reason.
Right.
So it's really interesting. That being said, numbers are numbers, right? We have over 50,000 subscribers to our email list. It's a lot of people. I hope I'm just grateful I don't get attacked for sending so many emails out, because I send out a lot of emails, and apologies, people. I just really, really want you to come to the webinars. So the 50,000 is like the core. And then we have tens of thousands of connections on LinkedIn, tens of thousands of followers, of group members. And theoretically, our audiences or our community is as big as the legal departments in the country and the world.
Right.
Anybody, anybody can come and enjoy. And I totally, I tell our webinar attendees, I tell our mixer attendees, tell your friends, tell your in-house legal colleagues to come and sign up and enjoy. So it's an interesting question.
Well, it's. I was when I went on the first. I I did the first webinar. I remember looking at like the number of people who were in attendance, and I like had to take a breath. I was like, oh man, like, all right, let's just minimize that part of that. Focus on Jonathan.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you just get outstanding, and then the event we did in New York, just outstanding attendance. And I think one of the things that I've been impressed with is seeing the depth of experience within the membership. You got people who have been practicing for a long time. You got people who are new to their careers, and I think they all bring something meaningful to the community. And that's not an easy mix to get.
Yeah,
right?
It's interesting. I do a lot of I try and serve. I try and like organize webinars across different topics.
Yep.
I don't know if I can like serve everybody, but we do a good job of staying top of mind and organizing relevant webinars. And I think they're high quality, they're free CLE. I just want to make it easy for people to tune in. Like, it's like kind of like a lunch and learn type format. And, again, I work, I don't know if you were on that that Tech Check webinar call for the first one.
Yeah.
But I do that with every webinar. We have a pre-check. If I know it's going to be a lot of people, we average over 400 attendees per webinar, and that's an average. So it could be 700, 800, it could be whatever.
Yeah.
So and it's not an easy thing. You're not something that happens every day. So I always make sure to prep them, and especially with our active chat box and the questions and it's important that they're prepared. And that's my job, is to make sure that they have the speakers have a great experience.
Yeah.
And so, and they anticipate that it's going to be a lot. It's going to be 500 people, and it's going to be a lot of questions, and, so that they're not surprised. Because that's a worst case scenario is, you're unprepared and it's like 700 people. That's a recipe for disaster. And that's not what I want for anybody.
Right. Although it is a ton of fun when you have a lot of engagement. Like, it just makes the conversation go a lot easier. I think what I found a little bit different about the in-person event versus the webinar in that regard was that I think with the webinar you're kind of pulled back to your outline, right, or your topics. Like, you can't just take the entire next 20 minutes going down some rabbit trail, because someone asked a question, when you have 500 people there who are looking, like, who literally signed up for that content. I think it's like a little bit different with some of the live, because you see, like, you can read the room a little bit and see if people are actually responding to this, or if they're kind of yawning and pecking on their phones and stuff. So
it's a completely different vibe. And that one, that was like a fun one. I think there was like a back and forth, like, there was like somebody asked a question, and then another person was like, oh yeah, that was a good question. A follow up on that question, It's like, it was a great, it was a great in-person event. And you and Nanesh did a great job. Shout out Nanesh.
Yeah,
he was a great
awesome.
co-presenter.
Yeah, he's awesome. I just met him through that.
Yeah.
And I mean, what an impressive guy.
Awesome.
Absolutely impressive guy.
Awesome.
So what when you think about let me ask this in two ways. What's next, and how does that further the value that you're bringing to the members?
It's a great question. It's something I think about all the time, frankly, every day. So what's next? So I guess we'll start with what's happening now. Webinars, we did a ton of webinars, and I don't think that's going to change. I would like to do more webinars.
Yeah.
We've done 80 webinars this year so far, and we love the webinars. They work great, and that's not gonna change. What I am adding is in-person mixers.
Okay.
So, every week or every 2 weeks or 3 weeks, we're going to go to different cities and host mixers, after work mixers. There will be drinks, dinner, and just networking, and that's the script. I'm really lucky to have a nationwide audience. I feel like I can go to any city in the country and host a mixer that is well attended and well received by the attendees. I've done a number this year already. New York, we had a lot of people. LA, which a magical night in LA. Austin, nice. A beautiful night, and I've like several more lined up.
I feel like LA is one of those communities that probably needs a little bit more attention from an in-house perspective, because San Francisco sucks so much oxygen off that coast, right? Because there's just like so many, like, and maybe I'm a little bit like, maybe I'm a little bit hyper focused on it just because I'm in the tech space, and there are a ton of like non-tech companies everywhere with in-house attorneys, but it just feels like San Francisco, like when people think about, oh, let's do a lawyer event in California, it's usually in San Francisco.
It's really interesting you say that, because the vibe in LA was really special. Like I had a lot of people, and I have to kind of figure out like why that is, but I had a lot of people who, they watch a lot of webinars, so that was great. Like a lot of their big IHC fans, and they were super appreciative of the opportunity to mingle and mix with fellow in-house, counsel. And a number of them had told me that they're fully remote, so they don't really get to interact with many people generally. A number of them said they're not part of any other professional groups, so they don't have this opportunity, period, to meet and mingle with other in-house counsel. So it's funny you say that, because it was like an extra charged atmosphere, I would say.
Especially when you've got like really, really strong law firm presence in that area. Like, there's enough business in LA. I mean, granted, there's a lot of entertainment industry stuff, but LA is a massive, massive area. Like,
Century City.
It's like all of Southern California. It's not just LA, right? Yeah. It's within 3.5 hours of LA. But like there's a lot of business out there to be had, and with that comes a lot of in-house lawyers, and
totally.
I know a handful of them, and like they've kind of reiterated that they're like, there's really not a ton of community things for me to do, and it's tough because my lawyer contacts are mostly my law firm contacts, which is an interesting thing
for sure
in a lot of ways.
So, it's that this LA problem exists across the country, and it's an opportunity, a unique opportunity for In-House Connect to fill and bring these people together, and it's something I'm super, super excited about. I just started, it's good I'm on Cockpit Council because I've started flying a lot, I'm super excited for next year. I think we're going to do many mixers. It's kind of just a budget thing, like that's like we never did. This is not something we did before, and now we started to do it. Now, firms, legal tech companies are gonna, sign up, and with more sponsorship, I can do more stuff. Is basically the equation. So I see a lot more in-person mixers. I'm working on a blog. I want to, provide some blog content. I'm not sure if we're going to do news necessarily, but there's
news
a lot.
News is a tough spot.
I don't know. Maybe one day, who knows? Right. But like just a blog about our webinars. If you missed it, you want to watch a recap, or you want to read a recap. I think that's enormously valuable. I'd love to write blog content about our speakers, our presenters. About Tim, right? About Jonathan, about Ashlyn, right? There's so many like wonderful speakers that we have. I think there's like a real opportunity there. And then I'm not sure if it's next year or what, but it's certainly, on my radar. I want to do a conference. Maybe like, I don't know if it'll be a big conference or regional conferences or what, but for sure we're going to do a conference. I just have to, we were talking about this pre-show, I have to figure out what's the best way of executing on this conference, and how do we, like, our webinars are fantastic, our in-person events are fantastic, and our conferences are going to be fantastic. I just have to figure out like what that combination is.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So a lot on the horizon. Fingers crossed we execute perfectly on everything.
I think you'll be fine.
That's awesome. Well, we'll transition a little bit to our Ask an Expert section of the show.
Okay.
So we have some questions to get your advice on, and you too, Tim, if you have
Who's
any.
the expert?
All right. So the first one, which you've touched on, is what networking advice do you have for fully remote employees?
Yeah. So the key for fully remote employees is you have to be top of mind. Like, you have to internalize this. Like, that is your challenge of being fully remote. Like, how do you be top of mind? So my number one piece of advice is to be proactive. Proactively, like when you start a new position, those first 90 days, you have it's not a get out of jail free card, but you have a card to reach out to anybody in the org and say, hey, I'm new. I want to learn about your role. I want to learn about how I can support you. Please, can we get a virtual coffee, or, can I get some time on your calendar? That's like essential. Be proactive with doing virtual coffees, virtual lunches with your colleagues. Check in, stay top of mind with your supervisor the same way. Offer, if you're in the same city as other colleagues, offer to get lunch with them or drinks. Be proactive. Make sure people that know that you're there. And then do your best to be proactive in team meetings as well. If there's opportunities for additional assignments, it's a challenge. And it's important to acknowledge this. It's a challenge when you're 100% remote. People in the office, there's a new, I don't know if it's a new trend because this was always the way it was, but companies are bringing people back to the office now more than they ever were. So, you're kind of fighting an uphill battle as a fully remote employee. So you have to be extra proactive and extra visible. In order to succeed, get promoted, and level the playing field with those who are in the office and are potentially more visible than you.
Yeah. The only thing that I would add would be if you're a little later in your career and others reach out to you, like a LinkedIn cold message or something like that. And I'm not always the best about this, but I try to be like, particularly with folks who are local, is like, yeah, like I'll get on a Zoom with you, and or, oh, you're gonna be at that thing, like, yeah, let's make sure we find each other, right? Yeah. Like that kind of thing is because you just like never know where those young people are going to end up, in their career, what they're going to do. Quite frankly, like, I find it pretty rewarding to help others achieve their goals, and if I can open any doors, then good. I mean, everybody needs that little help. So.
Definitely. I that spurred one more thought, and that is, if your company has a retreat or a rah-rah day, whatever it is, 100%. Be there. There's certain things like quarterly earnings days or conferences, Dreamforce, like, I don't know, there's a lot of different conferences. If that comes up, go, do whatever it takes to be there, because the whole company will be together. It's an enormously valuable opportunity to network and be visible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that leads nicely into the next question, which is, how do you recommend finding a mentor early in your career, or steps to take towards professional development?
Yeah, I think it starts in law school, actually. I would say all law schools have some sort of mentorship program with alumni, and those are like super valuable, and it's a lot easier to go through the law school as opposed to cold messaging Tim or me for advice, and it's a lot more successful. So start early on, and those relationships will last. Like I did it a couple of times myself, and I still stay in touch with my mentees. Mm-hmm. So super valuable opportunity there. Next, I would say you have to be intentional about who you're reaching out to and why. not just because, somebody has, I don't know, 10,000 followers and, writes funny posts, should you reach out and seek mentorship with them, or even if because they're the GC or whatever. You should always have like a point in what you're doing. So that starts with identifying an industry you want to be a part of, identifying a practice area, identifying, a subject matter that you're really passionate about. And then you can like reach out to somebody like Tim or whomever and say, hey, I'm a law student or I'm a young in-house lawyer. I want to, deepen my knowledge of data privacy. Do you have any advice for me or something like that? That will go a lot farther than, I'm working at a firm and I want to go in-house, or, I'm a law student. I want to go in-house. Do you have any like general stuff? It's not as compelling as, somebody with a demonstrated interest in a particular area that also overlaps with your own experience. So, be intentional and start early is my advice.
Yeah. And the only thing I would add to that is to the extent that you can, like, if you are early in your career, you're fortunate enough to figure out like how to be in-house early. You can build your network massively by going to the events that the firms that are representing you are putting on, like just in your city, like so-and-so is doing like, even if it's something that like is not applicable to you, like, oh, like, you're not a public company and it's a securities something or other thing, like more likely than not, you're going to have a lot of in-house attorneys at that, like, how to deal with the SEC thing that,
Totally.
Big Law is putting on. So I went to a bunch of those things early on in my career.
I when I was at that tech startup, we had like this litigation in Louisiana, and we ended up using a big law firm, and the relationship partner from that engagement I'm still in contact with today. You're right. It's a great point. When you're young in your career, right, there's advantages and disadvantages. It's a huge advantage because, the stakes are a lot lower and it's a lot easier for them to build a relationship with you and, kind of develop it over time. I love that, and very, very close with that law firm, and, it all started there. So super, super great point.
Any advice or thoughts on building your brand at different stages in your career?
Yeah, so it's a great question. I think you have to. So it's interesting. I guess there's a couple of things. If you know what you want to do, right? If you want, you want to be in telecom. If you want to do data privacy or AI or whatever, that's really half the battle. And once you have that focus, you know what you want. Then you have to be like really consistent in building your expertise or your connection to those subjects. If you don't know what you want, it's a lot harder, right, to build a brand. But there's lots of ways to build a brand. You can make funny memes on LinkedIn, right? You can write thought-provoking posts. You can do updates. There's a whole host of things. But I think ultimately, the more specific you are, it all really starts with the specificity. If you have an idea of where you want to be or what you want to talk about and what you want to be an expert in, that's like the first question you have to answer. And then it all kind of falls into place. If you're an expert in AI, you can write blog posts, you can write on LinkedIn, that'll open doors for speaking opportunities and webinars and so on and so forth. And then from there, the sky's the limit. So I think the first thing you have to do, identify what you want your brand to be associated with, or what subject you want to tie yourself to.
For me, I just do whatever Alyssa tells me to do and go that way. But no, I think one of the things that Alyssa, you told me like early on is that it's really important that whatever you're doing, it's like genuinely you.
Yeah.
Right? Like people can sense when you're just trying to like make stuff to get followers and things like that.
Yeah.
And in like, I mean, maybe if we were like doing, some like, I don't know, street crime thing on LinkedIn or something like that, like, or on TikTok or something like that. Like, it's a different environment than like, you know, than LinkedIn, and like trying to have it a little bit married to your professional aspirations, right? Like,
I think for in-house counsel, at least, or in-house legal, I mean, LinkedIn is the 1, 2, and 3 of where you want to be and where you want to focus. And we're very fortunate that it's not like Twitter or something else. And there's a lot of ways to build a brand. You can. I mean, there are really, like, so many ways. There's somebody who makes like fun musical videos every Monday. They post this. It's really it's awesome. Like, they're in legal tech and he makes like musical videos. It's really cool. There's others who make funny memes or funny videos. People write long form posts. People just write back and comment on posts. There's so many ways. It's really, you're only limited by your imagination. So be bold, not to be too bold, but be bold, and bring your personality to LinkedIn, and good things will happen.
Love it. All right. Well, we end every episode with some rapid fire questions. So
it's
if
over
you're ready,
already.
I know.
I want to stay.
We'll have to have you back.
Okay.
Part 2.
You got it.
What is your hot take on working in-house?
So here's my hot take. Every in-house lawyer, 100% of in-house lawyers will say that they are business-minded, but they're not really business-minded, or they're not truly business-minded. And what do I mean by that? I think the average in-house lawyer will say, in a contract negotiation, and there's like, a minor, there's like an edit about choice of law, is it Delaware, is it New York? I'm not going to fight over this. I'll be business-minded and I'll give up. We'll do Delaware, and I'm so business-minded. Like, look, I didn't hold up the deal. That's not being business-minded. I worked, my last boss, I'm not going to mention his name. He doesn't love attention, but he was the most wonderful boss I ever had, and he was so business minded, and he spoke the business's language. Like, so here are some, what do I mean by this, right? Do you listen to your company's earnings calls? Period. Do you even listen to them? And if you listen, do you understand the questions that are being asked? Do you understand the answers? Do you understand, the differences in the quarters? Do you understand the lingo? Do you understand who the competitors in your industry are? Do you understand what's happening with them? Do you understand how they're, pricing their services or their products, or how they market their services and their products? Are there mergers or acquisitions in those, in the industry? And how does that impact you? How are you different? How are you the same? Have you looked at your company's balance sheet? Do you understand that? The terminology that your sales or, ops people look at. ARPU, there's acronym salad in the telecom world. Okay. There's so many, I didn't know, I thought it was gibberish, and do you understand those acronyms? Truly, once you can have a meaningful conversation with somebody in the business on their level with their acronyms, understanding the different things in the business, then you're really business minded. If you know what the company did a year ago and what it's doing now and why, that is truly being business minded. And I think there are certainly many in-house counsel who truly are business minded, but the vast majority think that they are and are actually not.
That's a great hot take.
Do you agree? I'm afraid, Tim.
1,000%. 1,000%. Rarely is it that giving something on a contract makes you business minded.
Right.
It's just kind of
awesome. All right. If Tim agrees, I know.
1,000%.
There you go. What's your number one networking tip?
So, in my opinion, the key to networking is the realization that this is an investment. You have to invest, and investments require multiple investments. So really the key to networking is being consistent and being, and staying with it. So for instance, if there's like with In-House Connect, 6-7 years ago, we met monthly. I never missed a CLE. I had plenty of CLE. Okay, I could bank my CLE for the rest of my career. Right, I didn't need the CLE, but I went to every CLE panel. And when you go to something regularly, the people, you become a regular. People see you like, oh, hey, Shai, good to see you again. How's everything? That is the key to building relationships. It's really in the consistency and the repetition. So be prepared. If you're setting off on your networking journey, if you want to build that network, say to yourself, this is an investment. It's not, this is an investment that requires a once a month or, twice a month commitment or whatever it is. But be prepared to make that commitment and understand that that's what it takes for this to bear fruit. Because if you go to like a one-off conference, you'll make friends, but then, so often you won't stay in touch with these people, right? You'll get business cards and, you'll connect on LinkedIn and that's it. Like, so many, I'm like Mr. Networker over here. I have so many people that I've networked with that I have not followed up with, that I have not stayed in touch with. That's why the key is to be, consistent and make that investment. And if you do, that network will pay off for you 10 times.
That's great. And what is your advice for achieving work-life balance?
So I think it's deceptively simple, but that is to block off time on your calendar. There is nothing, more annoying than you have your afternoon is open. You're like, okay, I'm going to work on this contract. I'm going to work on that. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Then, somebody out of the blue Teams you and he's like, hey, we're on a call. Can you join? And it looks like you're open. You have nothing going on because it's like clear, but you're about to like edit something. You're about to, and then, okay, you get pulled into that call because you can't like really say no. And then, you're on that call for like, who knows, hours. And then you got to go back and do the stuff that you did before. Tim's laughing because that's happened to him. That's a recognition laugh.
Yep.
That is the worst. That is the worst. So, my advice, block off time on your calendar liberally. Take the lunch, block off at the 5 o'clock time period. And if you have stuff that you need to work on, block it off and say whatever, XYZ MSA or XYZ SOW. That way you won't get pulled into too many things. You can have plausible deniability, right. And, hopefully you'll preserve your work-life balance.
Yeah, it's like the reason I was laughing is because there's like the hey you up corporate equivalent of like, hey, got a sec?
Oh.
That's always my favorite, like from...
Tim, you're going to inspire a meme with that line. That's like, things, Friday, right? Friday, 4 o'clock in the summer Friday. Hey, you got a sec? That's like the dreaded message.
Friday, 7:15 from someone who you can't say no to.
There you go.
Oh, yeah. Those are always the most fun.
Yeah.
So,
well, this has been a load of fun.
Yeah, this has been awesome. Shai, thanks so much for joining us, and great to see you. Great to catch up again. And thanks, everyone, for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us. And if you have any topics for discussion or guests you'd like to see on the show, feel free to submit them to cockpitcouncil@linksquares.com.